Hey guys, I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. Welcome back to the Central Buzz News. It is Monday, May 4th, and our time for today we're actually going to hold off on for a few minutes because I have some today in history, some interesting facts, and that all ties into our math concept for today, which you're going to see here in the background, and our time. So we're going to hold off on that. But I did want to tell you some interesting facts about the Kentucky Derby. It is May now, and the Kentucky Derby is a famous horse race that takes place every May. And I was actually very surprised at how old it is. The very first Kentucky Derby race was held on May 17th, 1875. That is a really long time ago. I had no idea that it was going on that long, so that's really cool. The Kentucky Derby is actually the oldest continually ran sporting event in the United States, which is something else I did not know. I assume some other sport like football or soccer, anything like that would be something. It may not have been called that back then, but definitely thought that would be something a little bit long running, especially football, American football. But no, the Kentucky Derby, a horse race, is considered a sporting event and is the oldest continually ran sporting event. So on May 17th, 1875, the first Derby race took place in front of 10,000 spectators. And so that's a lot of people that were there watching. And so something really unique about the Kentucky Derby is the dress. I tried to kind of show you today the women that go to the races in Louisville, Kentucky, where they're held every year, that go to the races. They wear really big, looks like tea party dresses with lots of colors, and they wear hats. Everybody at the Derby wears hats, and they're not like ball cap hats. They are huge, like sun hats with flowers and horses and however they want to decorate them. I didn't wear my hat today just because it'd be a little hard for you to see because these are some really big hats. But I love the fashion of the Kentucky Derby. That's one of my favorite things. The men at the Kentucky Derby wear bow ties and suit jackets and probably some sort of hat if they want to. So that's just something that's kind of unique about the Kentucky Derby. And again, it is a horse race. And we're going to be talking about the distance of the race, but I want you to keep in mind that a horse race at the Kentucky Derby actually goes in a circle. I'm going to be showing you in a straight line, but the distance is actually included in the circle. So, the Kentucky Derby is usually held on the first Saturday of every month. Not always, but usually, especially in the past years, it's been held on that first Saturday. And so, because of that, on this day in history, I was able to find from years where May 4th was on a Saturday, of course. It wasn't this year. But in years past, I found a ton of Kentucky Derby races that took place on this day in history. I just picked the most recent one because there were so many from so many years ago that I could have listed. But on today in history, which was May 4th, 2019, so just last year, it was the 145th Kentucky Derby race. So that's how many races have happened. So when I said lots of years, 145 races, and last year was the 145th. So on this day in history, the 145th Kentucky Derby race took place. A horse named Maximum Security was actually disqualified at the finish line. And a horse named Longshot was actually declared the winner. And this, from what I understand, was the very first time in 145 races that a horse was disqualified at the finish line. So he had done something that would make him disqualified. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was disqualified at the finish line. And one thing about the Derby that some people don't agree with, it can be a controversial issue, is that the horses, people go and they bet money on which horses are going to win. So it is a form of gambling. And so you have to imagine how upset the people who bet on Maximum Security were when they realized that he did actually cross the finish line first, but was not declared the winner. So they didn't win their money with that. But I have done some research on the Kentucky Derby, and there are lots of things that they sell for lots of money at the Derby that goes to the care of the horses after the Derby. So that's a nice thing to keep in mind, that the horses are taken care of there. So for our math concept and our time today, I want to tie it into our Kentucky Derby because I thought there were so many interesting facts and it was so cool that it was on Today in History. And it actually works out perfectly because I really want to take just a second to talk to you about the word quarter. It's up there at the very top. It's cut off just a little bit because I need to be able to reach this, but you can see it says, what is 1/4? We use the word quarter in so many different situations, but quarter actually means 4 in a lot of situations, and so I wanted to talk about that with you. So the first thing I have is how many quarters make $1. A lot of you guys already know it takes 4 quarters to make $1. And one reason is because each quarter is 25 cents. Now, I had a kid in my class one time say, oh, well, I know that 25 and 25 is 50, so this has to be 50, and 50 and 50 is 100 cents or $1. And I thought that was a really smart way of looking at 25 and 25. 25 and 25 does make 50, and 4 25s does make $1. So that's why our quarter is called a quarter. How many quarters are in a football game? So I didn't really think about this until I started thinking about what I was going to tell you guys about quarters. There are 4 quarters in a football game. You go through the first quarter, the second quarter, and then what do you have in the middle? Halftime, because you're halfway through. There's 4 quarters, and after the second one, you're halfway done. So halftime, third quarter, and fourth quarter. There are 4 quarters in a football game. Now, this one is super important. This is why I kept our time off till right now. So on the clock, you will hear a lot of people say, what time is it? Oh, it's 1/4 and they'll tell you what hour it's about to be. Or it's 1/4 after, and they'll tell you an hour. So I really wanted you to know that, first of all, when I hold up this clock, and I'm going to move this hand just to like a random place so you can see, you can actually divide the clock into 4 equal pieces. So these are quarters, and in this 1/4 of the clock is 15 minutes. So I have my time for today right here. Now, a lot of us already know at this point, especially after looking at this every day now, we know that this is 8, 5, 10, 15. This is 8:15. It is 15 minutes after 8 o'clock, which would mean it is 1/4 after 8 o'clock. So I have here 15 minutes before. Oh, I mixed those up. Let me fix that really quick for you. 15 minutes before and after. Sorry, I just caught my mistake there. So 1/4 after, right here, 8:15, means 15 minutes after an hour. So that's another way of saying that. So the next time someone asks you what time it is, and it's either 15 minutes after the hour or 15 minutes before the next hour, you look really, really smart if you say, well, it's 1/4 till 9, or it's 1/4 after 8. So at any point, if you want to take a picture when we're done of this poster so you can kind of keep this in mind, or if you want to take down some notes, this is really important everyday real life information. This isn't just, oh, we're going to learn this in school. This is a lot of things that grown-ups have to know every day, and the way that grown-ups talk about things every single day. So this is a really important poster for you to see. If you have an iPad or a phone that you can pause the screen and take a picture of this when we're finished, that might be something you want to do. So again, this is 1/4 after 8. Now if I took my hour hand and I waited until I was here, first of all, I know that looks like it's pointing to the 9, but this still, it's not on the 9 completely. It still belongs to the 8 because in 15 minutes it is going to be 9. That's why my hand is so close there. So this is 5, 10, 15 minutes until 9. So 15 minutes before the next hour would be 1/4 till. And this is a quarter till 9 o'clock because it's 15 minutes before it's going to be 9 o'clock. So I hope that you can use that when you're talking about time from now on, and we will incorporate more of those terms in our time telling in our news. But I did want to talk to you about that. All right, lastly, we're going to do a little bit of some fractions here. So in miles, we talk about a quarter of a mile. We talk about a mile and a quarter. In miles, the Kentucky Derby race, the distance of the race is actually 1 mile and a quarter of another mile. So it's not quite 2 miles, but it is at least 1 mile and then a quarter. And so now that we kind of have an idea, we know that quarter means 4, but I don't really know yet what that means as far as distance and on the number line. So we're just going to refresh really quickly about the number line. So if you are in 3rd grade at BCC, or you have been in 3rd grade at BCC, you know that sometimes our number lines for fractions can look like this. And the first thing that I saw when I saw this was this and this. My question would be, how many whole miles are on this number line? I'm going to give you just a second to answer. How many whole miles do you see? And I know if you're in my class, you are yelling out 2. Because I see the whole number 1. That means this whole piece added up to be 1 mile. I might have broken it up into smaller pieces, but putting them all together makes 1 whole mile. And then I see the whole number 2. This is 2 whole miles. Now, we're not going to use both whole miles, but that's how much space we have if we wanted to. 2 whole miles. So the first thing that I see here, now, what did I say a quarter means again? What number? 4. So I broke my number line into fourths. And I'm going to start labeling it here. So 0 out of 4. This is the start line. This is where the horses stand when they're getting ready to start the race, but they haven't started yet. If the horse goes here and stops, hopefully they're not stopping, but if they do, they would have went 1 piece of a fourth, 1/4 of a mile, 2/4 of a mile, 3/4 of a mile, or 4/4 of a mile, which is equivalent to 1 whole, because 4/4 is equivalent to 1 whole. So we have went 1 whole mile. We're good. But the horse isn't finished. They still have to go a quarter. So I'm going to keep going. This is my 5th piece out of a 4th. Okay? This is an improper fraction because my number on top is bigger than, my numerator is bigger than my denominator. So I have went 1 whole mile and 1 piece, 1/4, a quarter of this 2nd mile. So my stop is here. I'm not even going here. I'm just going 1 mile, which I've done, and then 1 piece of a 1/4 of the next mile. So right here, 5/4 is actually my fraction to show 1 mile and a quarter. Now I want to go back just a second. How much is a quarter? Did we say up here? How much is 1/4? I know we said sometimes it can mean 4, but when we're talking about money, how much is that quarter? 25 cents. So I'm just gonna write that here for just a second. Okay? And I went 1 whole mile. This is our decimal right here. And if you're in 3rd grade, you haven't really seen decimals yet. But if I want to talk about how far the Kentucky Derby horse runs in a decimal, this is what it looks like in a fraction. This is what it looks like in a decimal. And it just means 1 mile and then a quarter of another mile, which is 0.25 there. So, because remember, if I take 25 and add it up 1, 2, 3, 4 times, it's going to give me a whole. So 1.25. Now, I want to show you something that we can do to check ourselves. So I'm going to take my calculator and I'm just going to check 5/4. So I can take 5 and divide it by 4 to get my decimal here. I did that and look. 1.25. That is 1 mile and a quarter of another mile. 25. So that's what that looks like, and that is the distance of the Kentucky Derby. And remember what I said, it is in a circle, but I wanted to show you on the number line to have just kind of a review of our fractions and what that might look like. So again, if you want to pause your screen here, this would be the perfect place because everything is ready. And so I hope that you guys enjoy learning about a little bit about the Kentucky Derby and a little bit about the word quarter, how it can mean for, how it can have the value of 25 sometimes depending on what you're talking about. And just remember, this is real world grown-up stuff that you're going to need to know in life. So this is some really important information if you want to keep. Lastly, I just want to say the Kentucky Derby this year in May has been rescheduled to September due to the COVID-19. We can't have lots of people in a group. So that is coming up in September, and it is on a Saturday, and it does come on TV if that's something you're interested in. And I have looked up some old YouTube videos of races from years past to see the horses run, and so you can do that if you want to see kind of what that would look like. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.